Hello and welcome, gamers and listeners, to the MojoGaming podcast. This is our very first episode. I'm so excited. How about you, Monty?
I'm very excited too.
Well, for those of you who don't know us, my name is Amy, and
Monty.
Yes, Monty, as we were just saying. And for those of you who don't know Mojos, it's actually a small independent video game, media store that's in Wisconsin. We have 4 locations, and we literally sell movies, music, video games, and every kind of video game, from the Commodore 64 to the Nintendo Switch. We just have so much, and yeah, for 4 locations, some of them are bigger, some of them are smaller. They all have a really amazing inventory. But today we want to talk about something special. Spider-Man. For the PlayStation 4. There will be spoilers, but we're really excited to talk about this game. It's a super fun game. But before we start talking about that, let me talk a little bit about what this podcast is going to be about. Monty?
We want to go over story, gameplay, ease of playing, and we're going to rate the game and just kind of give you an idea of how our experience was for the game, which isn't going to be everybody's experience, but hey.
Exactly. We just kind of want to give a synopsis of the game and just our review, talk about our favorite things, things that could use improvement, and what we'd like to see in the sequel. So, without further ado, Spider-Man for the PlayStation 4! Yay! So, for those of you who don't know the storyline, and yes, there will be spoilers, Spider-Man starts off just hanging out in his room, sleeping away, and he gets a call from Yuri, and he has a super messy apartment. And the only reason we know it's an apartment is because he's got your payment is due eviction notices everywhere. It's pretty sad. And yeah, he literally flies out the window almost immediately after just seeing his hovel. And he just flies right into action. And they actually show you a little bit about web slinging and how to get from building to building, and then you're literally already on your own. The tutorial is not very long, which is fine. You don't always need a really in-depth tutorial. Sometimes the longer the tutorial, the less you want to play the game.
True.
So he's headed to Fisk Tower, and he's going there because it sounds like the police had taken over the building and Fisk's men were invading it again. And you find out later that he's actually trying to get some data back from his building. So Fisk is actually there himself, which you don't actually see very often in any video game. Usually it's just the thugs, and then if you're lucky, you'll see the boss at the very end of the game. But no, he's there, and as soon as you make your way up to the top of this insanely huge tower that's really cool, just really big, you get to actually fight him. Fighting him is actually one of the most boring battles in the entire game.
Yeah, it's repetitive.
Yeah, it was literally just shoot web at him, beat him up, shoot web at him, beat him up. It got really boring. And thankfully you only got to do it 6 or 7 times, but after the first time you're just is there going to be... Are all the boss battles going to be
They're not
this?
going to drop the most impressive boss to begin with, but you kind of expected a little more
right.
At the same time.
Because, you thought this was your first boss, and I'm assuming it's oh, this is a tutorial, let's not make it too hard. It actually is still kind of hard. It took me a while to figure out how I was supposed to, hurt him, kill him, hurt him, whatever you want to call it, hurt him. But yeah, it was just... I was very not impressed to begin with. That being said, he actually goes to jail. You catch him, he goes to prison, and they think he's supposed to go to Rikers, but instead goes to the Raft with some other villains that you've faced. Which ones were they?
The Rhino, Scorpion, and Electro.
And Vulture.
Yeah. Scraggly old man with feathers.
Not the cool one in Homecoming.
He's kind of in between the two, actually.
So after he gets sent, before he gets sent to the Raft, he has these really, infamous words. He's "You'll wish you were never put me away, Spider-Man." And, that sounds like every corny, movie or comic book line, but it's actually pretty menacing this time around, because you're just like, oh, that's foreshadowing. As soon as you hear it, you're just like, oh. So then we just do, okay, so basically what they want you to do after that is Yuri's like, oh no, the towers are down, and Yuri is the police chief. How did you like Yuri? Yuri Watanabe is the
police chief.
Yes, she's the police chief.
The, attractive, female cop, badass police chief.
Yeah. She's really awesome. It's kind of fun because she's very no-nonsense, and obviously Spider-Man is just full of silly things and quips, and it's a really cool combination because they are so perfect together as, partners. She basically tells you that the towers need to be fixed around New York City because they're all down. I don't know how they all got down, but they are all broken. So you have to refix them, or they have to fix them for the police so that they can hear all the crimes going on. And this is just a way to show you, local crimes that are going on so you can get there just as soon as the police do. It also shows you, some unlockables and some collectible stuff, some side missions. It pretty much shows you where every objective is in New York, which is really cool. You just have to get to every tower. There are a lot of games that use this tower method, I'm trying to think. Far Cry 4 had kind of a tower thing. Assassin's Creed, I think, had kind of a tower thing, except it was more get to the top of tall buildings instead of towers. But yeah, I mean, it's fun. Don't get me wrong. Obviously, if you're Spider-Man, you want to climb to the top of the tallest building and, fix a tower. But at the same time, it's been done. It didn't make it any less fun, though. So what was your favorite, collectible that you could get? Because there are a bunch of different ones scattered around New York.
Probably the backpacks, then.
The backpacks were a lot of fun. So what the backpacks were, and that it's just literally a side little thing. I think you do unlock a suit or something from doing all of that.
Yeah, the homemade suit.
Oh, yeah,
from
that's
Homecoming,
right. Yeah.
which is my favorite Spider-Man movie.
Yeah, and what was your favorite collectible inside the backpack? Because literally, there's 55 freaking backpacks spread all out in New York City, and there's one item in every backpack. But the cool part about it is that he kind of goes into detail about each item a little bit, which is really cool. Because it's not needed, but it's kind of appreciated because it's a small glimpse into Spider-Man's life that you don't usually see.
Exactly.
So what was your favorite collectible?
Probably the spider plushie, which you get right away, but he is so adorable. He's like, spider plushie! And yeah.
Yeah, and I like the plushie too. But I think my favorite might have been he has some fan art from a kid that was
yeah.
Yay, Spider-Man! And he was like, oh, this is so cute. He's like, I have to have it on me at all times, even though it really wasn't on him. It was in a backpack. But yes, it was still really cute and very touching. Oh, landmarks, which I don't feel are necessary, but if you're going to recreate all of New York City, I understand why you would have it there.
It was kind of
just take pictures of landmarks, yeah.
They were just there's nothing about, in the first 3 movies when they're Spider-Man's side job is he works for the Bugle and takes pictures for the Bugle. They're we want to acknowledge that, but we also don't want to make it a part of the a big part of the game, yeah. So we'll make it a side quest. So you just have to go around taking pictures of famous places in New York, which is kind of cool if you're into New York history, or if you're from New York, you'd be like, hey, I've seen that place before.
I've been there before.
Or I've been there before, exactly. And I remember reading that it was really detailed, it's actually accurate to New York. Every building pretty much is accurate. I mean, aside from Avengers Tower, unfortunately. And,
yeah. And the stuff they made up, Osborn's.
Oscorp, and all the construction sites.
Yeah.
Yeah. Speaking of the Avengers Tower, there's an achievement that you get just from perching on top of it and staring across the city. Yeah, I appreciated that.
It was all the achievements are super fun on Spider-Man. So after you mess around with the towers a little bit, you finally get to meet Aunt May and someone named Martin Lee, who is really cool. He's just like a slick back, really like suave-looking businessman, and he basically runs Feast with your Aunt May. And Feast is like a homeless shelter. Aunt May's been there for a while, very appreciated. Martin Lee loves her, not like in love, but like as a partner, like as partners working together. Yes, working together. And then after that, like you have a little surprise party for her, you say some really nice things, and we go on into, I think, Spider Cop.
Yeah.
Which Yuri hates. Yuri hates Spider Cop. It's one of Spider-Man's many, like, little alter egos.
Oh wait, don't you go to work with Octavius?
Right, that's right. We also get to find out that Spider-Man has a part-time job.
His other job.
Yes, his other job. He works for Otto at Octavius Industries with Doc Ock. At this point, he's not Doc Ock. And what does Doc Ock work on again?
He is a scientist, and he creates, like...
It's like advanced prosthetics, basically, yeah. It's really cool. He's really trying to help people, and you gotta give him that, because I don't really know if we saw that side to him in any of the movies. And I know the game wasn't based on any, like, movie, video game, or, any comic books. It's a completely new story. Obviously the characters are all derived from each one in their own way. It was much appreciated to have them work together, because then you get to see how cool it is when he starts turning bad.
It makes it more, like, intense.
Yeah.
They build it up by, like, showing how great their relationship is, but, and, like, they work together, so, you actually get to do science with Dr. Octopus in the form of mini-games.
Oh, yeah. There are many mini-games throughout the whole Spider-Man world, which is nice. There's, like, a cell matchup game where you just kind of match up lines. There's a circuit board one where you just, like, you have a beginning of the circuit board, you have an end, try to connect the two with the rules that they give you. It's pretty simple stuff,
but it's like it's just hard enough to where you feel like you're doing something like amazing and cool. But it's actually just slidey bars.
It's not really needed, but it's nice to have something that makes you feel like you're actually doing something. My favorite part, though, is that you can skip them if you don't like them. There are many people I know who do not have the patience for those kinds of games, or for those kinds of mini-games, I should say.
I'm the person who wouldn't have the patience to get through a boss battle, but I'd sit there with one of those little things, one of those little mini-games, and just, like, work on it forever.
Yeah, exactly. Everybody goes about their gameplay differently, which is what's so cool about it. So Otto, he's a bigger dude. He's balding, he's sweaty, normal, Otto stuff. That's the best way to describe it. And then, I mean, he totally admires, Peter. They get along really well, and basically Otto's whole goal is to try to get a grant from the committee so that he can make advanced prosthetics. Well, he's just incredibly smart and talented, and
it just, like, blows up in his face.
And the reason why he ends up going insane is because Osborn, who is head of the committee and also the mayor of New York City, is like, no, we're not funding your experiment. We're definitely going to keep making Oscorp stuff instead, because it's
is like
mine.
Cheaper Walmart versions of what Octavius was making.
Well, Oscorp apparently is more genetics, whereas Otto is more prosthetics, and you find out at one point when they were younger they actually worked together, and I guess Osborn always treated him like he wasn't good enough, and it's a grudge that you find out is actually a big deal, like, later on, especially when he starts going crazy. And ultimately, Osborn is the reason why he doesn't get his grant, and he ends up getting shut down.
But he, one of the other reasons they didn't give him his grant money is because he cut corners. Like, Octavius wasn't really concerned about, like, side effects. He was like, I want to get the job done.
And safety. He was
safety.
There was, like, a fire when he was showing off his prosthetics, and the committee was not happy. And obviously, if you're making, like, limbs for people, like artificial limbs, you need to make sure that they are safe.
Yeah, it's just, and it's funny because all of these things happen, and Peter Parker is just like, whatever, Doc, I'm here for you. And he just doesn't realize that all of this is, like, obviously set up for his... I mean, I suppose if I was him, I wouldn't realize it either, but it's just, like, very pre-villain stuff.
And then there's another funny part where, like, you come after hours, Spider-Man comes after hours to fix his suit because he gets into that huge fight with Kingpin and it gets all ripped up and all that fun stuff. And so he goes to fix it, and nobody's there, so he's like, yay, I can work on this and just throw it out in the open and nobody will know, and who happens to appear? Otto. And he's just like, hey, what you doing? And Spider-Man's like, nothing! Tries to hide it, but he can't, and Otto's like, oh, you work for Spider-Man? You make his gadgets? And him just like, it's sad that he doesn't think that you're cool enough or good enough to be Spider-Man.
Well, and convenient, because... yeah, I don't know what he would have done if he knew.
Yeah, true. But yeah, he actually helps, like, make a whole new suit for Spider-Man, which is really cool. So they actually work together for Spider-Man for a little bit there, and it's really nice. Like, you just kind of like go, aw, he's such a cool guy. Like, I really hope he doesn't become bad in this game.
Yeah, and I think at that point, that's when you find out that you can unlock, like, a whole bunch of new cool suits, right?
Yeah, and there are a lot of cool suits. We have a picture of the ones that we really liked that we're going to put on Twitter so that you can look at them if you want. There's the Negative suit, which is one of my favorites. They also have the classic comic book suit, which is just awesome.
It's the best one. Well, I like the homemade suit just because of nostalgia, but yeah, the comic book suit... It literally looks like he stepped out of, like, a Marvel comic book and into the game. Like, he's got, like, the hard outlines and, like, bright colors and stuff. Like, kind of like, Borderlands character.
Yeah, it basically looks like Borderlands art with more realistic, like, a background.
Exactly. So, it seems odd, but it's actually
pop
really
out
cool.
for sure.
Pop art. Yeah,
it's pretty awesome. I really like it. And the nice thing is, like, there's some darker suits. Very easy to lose yourself in the darkness and, like, how big New York City is. But when you have, like, a really cool bright suit, which is kind of what I went with, even the Negative one was pretty bright. It's really nice because you can always know where you are, especially when you're beating up the thugs and stuff like that.
Which is, like, probably 70% of the game, right?
Yeah,
beating people up.
just about.
And that's how you earn tokens to buy stuff, too, which you can, like, modify your suit. You can buy new suits. You can modify your gadgets because you have, like, bombs and, like, sticky bombs and stuff.
Yeah, well, there's all sorts of webs. There's a bunch of different kinds of webs and a bunch of different, like, gadgets that use your webs too, like trip mines, and there's like a web ball where you actually throw it and it like blows up and pastes people to the wall. It's really cool, and you can use those for when you're doing stealth attacks too, which is really nice because sometimes two people are next to each other and you're just like, how am I going to take these guys out? So you can always use that as a distraction, which is really nice. These gadgets are pretty cool. And the fighting in general is really cool. There are a couple different kinds of bad guys, and then a bunch of different, enemy bases and alliances that you have to deal with, which some of them are okay. Most, like, it feels a little unnecessary, but I get it where, like, the game was coming from. They wanted more for you to do. The enemy bases are kind of a pain in the butt. Most of them are fine. The Sable ones are a pain in my butt.
Yeah, you get introduced to Silver Sable at one point.
Yes, and she works with Osborn, the mayor, at a certain point where the city starts getting overrun with villains.
They're called... well, actually, I guess we should go, we should talk about Martin Lee.
Well, you find out at a Fisk estate sale.
Yeah, because, before this point, you're, taking out a bunch of Fisk's little hideouts, and that's, busy work.
It's all Fisk to begin with.
Yeah, it's busy work that leads up to this point.
Right. So Fisk has an estate sale, and you get a tip from Yuri that, like, a silent alarm had been triggered. So you go to check it out, and wow, what do you know? Guys in kabuki masks are threatening this lady, it's like Scooby-Doo, threatening this lady to give them papers. And she's like, I don't know what you're talking about. There was someone else here, maybe they have it. And you're just like, that's weird. It's literally just this lady in the kabuki mask. Who else could it possibly be? So, you know, you have to take them out stealthy, and this is kind of where you find out about stealth gameplay, which is fairly easy. It's just like the button, and you hit the button, and you can take them out as long as you're not in danger, and reveal yourself, because as soon as you reveal yourself, you're not stealth anymore.
It's like hide and seek.
Although, if you do, like, cause a little bit of attention to yourself, you can hide, and then, like, people will forget about it, which it's actually pretty fast. It's not like Skyrim, where you feel like you're sitting there for, like, 30 minutes, and finally they're leaving you alone so that you can do another sneak attack.
Mm-hmm. But you can also take them out, like, before they alert people. They're like,
Yeah.
hey! And then you just take them out.
Yes.
That's
really
also
nice.
an option.
Yeah, exactly. Or you could just go in there like a banshee and beat the crap out of everyone. So basically, you go from room to room to room, and then finally you stop and you're just like, is that Mary Jane's camera? And then enter Mary Jane, who's totally cute. I mean, I really like the character design for Mary Jane. Not as cool as Homecoming, in my opinion.
Well, who's cooler than Zendaya? And truly.
I'm not sure.
Nah.
I mean, but I feel like for the video game, it was a really good fit.
Yeah, she's actually kind of the opposite of Zendaya, if you think about it. Zendaya's like dark curly hair, and Mary Jane is like, I think she is redhead in the comic books, but
yeah, most people interpret her as a redhead.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of cool that Homecoming decided not to. But yeah, she's a redhead, longer hair. She just looks like your typical journalist. Like, I know it sounds weird, but she's kind of a basic journalist.
She's got like
she's got a really cool attitude, kind of what you would expect from Mary Jane.
Yeah, like, I will walk into this, like, villain hideout just to get a story.
Exactly. Yeah, and she basically goes there, she lies her way into the Fisk estate sale so that she can get basically the first scoop, but really all she wants to know is, like, what is Fisk hiding? I want to get this for the Bugle. I think that's who she works with for, right?
I think so.
Yeah, I think she still works for the Bugle. She's like, I want to get the scoop on Fisk, and you gotta love her passion and her drive. At this point, Peter and Mary Jane are not together, and they talk about that constantly.
They had gone through a breakup.
Yeah, they went through a bad breakup. They don't really talk much about what happened. They just keep going, oh, we'll never be back together,
Well,
like, a billion times.
Yeah, like, he was being too protective of her, because, like,
I guess the age-old Mary Jane Peter struggle. He never lets me be me.
Yeah, and he's like, I gotta protect you.
Yes, exactly.
But
which, I mean, is understandable, but at the same time, it gets the whole, like, drama gets to be a little too much at times.
I mean, unless you're into that, some people are. I mean, I appreciated it. But a cool thing is when she is telling, like, quotation marks, when she's telling Peter about how she broke into the Fisk, like, estate sale, you actually get to play her story out, which is cool.
It is really cool. And when you're playing a side character, which you do play another side character, but we'll get to that later, it's all sneaking. You can't get caught, you just kind of gotta run, hide, until you get to your objective, which is fine. There are, like, little things that you can do along the way, like noisemakers to attract baddies over to a certain place so that you can just sneak away the other way. But for the most part, it's all stealth, which is fine. So, you discover this file about Devil's Breath, I believe?
Yep.
And you're just like, what is it? And Mary Jane has it, and she ends up getting it stolen from her.
She had the Devil's Breath?
She had the file on Devil's Breath.
Okay.
Yeah, there's like a file that she finds, which is a file that the guys are complaining about in the beginning.
They're like,
and the
where
guys in
is
the kabuki masks. And those guys are really cool. They're actually my favorite sect of bad guys, considering you have at least, like, 5 different sects. There's Fisk's men, there's Martin Lee's men, which you find out later on Martin Lee is the leader of the kabuki guys. which are the demons. That's what they call them. There's inmates that escape from prison. Sable has their own.
Which they're like mercenaries and they fight for good, but they really just kind of get in your way because they want to like take over the whole thing. But
I guess there was just those 4 then.
Yeah.
I thought there was 5, but there's only 4.
Well, yeah. I guess the sub-villains, if you want to think about that, as like...
The thugs.
Well, the thugs, but then there's like the villains that aren't like Dr. Octopus and like Martin Lee.
Right, they're not bosses.
They're not bosses, but they're kind of like... Yeah.
Yeah. And what was your favorite sect of the little thugs?
I mean, I guess the like rocket launcher guys. I don't know.
But I mean, like, was it Sables, the demons, Fisksmen?
The demons? Oh, actually, wait. There's the demons, and then there's like the random like civilians that get turned.
Oh, yeah, yep. Martin Lee turns. So I guess we'll go into Martin Lee then. So after you you find out about Devil's Breath, and then somehow it's connected to Martin Lee. There's like some clue that you find in there that you're like, that's weird. Why would Martin Lee have anything to do with this? And of course, at this point, Martin Lee starts acting shady. He completely leaves Feast. He's like, you've got this, Aunt May. And Aunt May's like, all right, when are you going to be back? And he's like, I don't know. So basically he leaves, and that's when Spider-Man starts going, this feels like it's all very connected, and what do you know? It is. He goes into his room at Feast, he's obviously the owner, or the board of director, I don't know, whatever you want to call it. He goes into his room, finds a hidden room, and then he finds out that Mr. Lee has like this negative power that he can imbue into weapons that basically just cause like these huge like blasts of negative energy at people. He can also turn people negative and take energy from people. It's pretty badass.
It's an interesting, villain concept.
It is. It's very cool.
He's like a mutant.
Yeah. And when he turns, into Mr. Negative, his, whole, demeanor completely changes. Because he basically goes from, being the super-duper amazing smart guy who wants to help people and loves people to, doesn't give a crap about anything except, his goals. Which, is the normal villain. The normal villain thing. That's literally how most villains are. It's all about my plan. But yeah, he looks really cool. He basically turns silver. Mm-hmm. It's really cool. His skin is all silver, and he can make other people become full of negative energy too, and just start beating the crap out of you. So random pedestrians will start doing that, and
it makes them focus on all of their negative emotions, obviously. Mm-hmm. So yeah, then they end up doing a whole bunch of damage.
Yeah, and I really like it. This actually probably one of my favorite baddies, just because there's a reason, but it feels you're taking someone who's incredibly smart and incredibly kind and giving, and you just throw that out the freaking window. Something you've been working on for most of his life, just throws it out the window, and he's this is more important than saving lives. And that's when you've got a really cool villain. When a villain's you know what, I've saved enough life, time to kill people. So yeah, I absolutely love Martin Lee. He's probably my favorite villain. So then at some point we find out, hey, Martin Lee is working with Otto, and they both work together because of their hatred of Osborn. They absolutely hate Osborn. So let's talk a little bit about Osborn.
He is, the mayor.
Yes, he's the mayor. A very mean dude.
He's just, he reminded me of Robert Redford. A really old Robert Redford.
I could see that.
Well, Robert Redford is old. What am I saying?
He's a redhead. He, obviously, if there's a second game, he's definitely going to be the Green Goblin at some point.
Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh, yes.
He is not the Green Goblin in this game, but...
They talk about his son, Henry?
Yeah.
And,
No, Harry. Goes away to Europe. You can't see me doing the Europe. My little quote. What is it? Quotation.
Air quotes.
Air quotes. Europe.
But you kind of there are a couple of side quests for Harry where he's what is he, a biology major?
Science major? He's trying to his mom was environmental lawyer.
There you go.
His mom was an environmental lawyer. She dies of like this really weird disease that most people don't have.
Yeah. And go ahead.
Yeah, so he wants to become an environmental lawyer too. So there's actually some little side quests that Spider-Man can help out for New York, and that includes like helping with pollution in the air, pollution in the seas, pollution on the streets, pollution from buildings.
This boy like destroys his lungs just for the environment.
He really does.
He like dives into those like biohazard zones.
Yeah.
But the only time you really see Harry in this game is he leaves like messages for Spider-Man, and yeah.
So you don't really ever get to see Harry until the very, very end.
Which
of the
we'll
game.
get to.
Which we'll get to.
Because it's like the very, you know how like when you go to see a Marvel movie and only the real fans like stay until the very end because there's like a little snippet cutscene at the end? Yeah. That's what we're talking about.
Pretty much. Okay, so we were talking about Norman Osborn. So Osborn, bad dude, not nice. He
Generally unpleasant.
You find out that he created Devil's Breath, which you find out even later on that it is a huge like toxin, disease that kills people. Basically, like if you took influenza and just like
gave it like steroids,
yeah, and just like pounded it full of like just the worst crap that you could find. And it's just a huge, like, biological weapon. It was bad. And, it's a bad thing.
It's airborne, too, which is, like...
Yeah.
Yeah.
How you don't want your biological weapons to work.
or you do.
Or you do. If you're a villain. Yeah, if you're a villain. So, yeah, he had it in a lab, and it got stolen at some point, and that's how it got out in the open. So, and of course he has a billion labs. Why not, right? Because at some point, Mary Jane actually sneaks up to Osborn's penthouse and finds out all of this stuff, which is a really cool side story. But we'll get to that in a second, because we still haven't talked about Miles Morales. Miles is one of my favorite characters. It's probably like,
very applauding.
Miles is one of my very favorite characters. And honestly, I'm just gonna be honest, it's because Miles was based off of, based off Donald Glover being Spider-Man. And I think he's amazing.
We both do.
Yes, we both think he's amazing. And if you ever want to talk about video games with us, feel free. We'll talk about video games all day with you. That would be amazing. So Miles is like... He's like a really
older
cool
teenager.
He's a really cool kid. He looks a lot like the Freaks and Geeks era
Donald Glover.
When
he was
like Troy and in Community.
Yes, if you've ever seen Community, which if you haven't, you should watch it because it's a good show.
They model him obviously after him because that's who the character was based on, and actually was made specifically.
Wasn't Donald Glover supposed to play Spider-Man in Home?
Everybody there was a huge online thing. They really wanted him to, not Homecoming, Amazing Spider-Man. Yeah, and it ended up going to Andrew Garfield.
It would have been a much better movie if he had. Yeah.
Well, hopefully, just because of how amazing Donald Glover is, you'd think it'd be amazing. But if the writing is poor, it's not going to be a good movie.
Exactly.
Sadly. But anyway, so Miles is awesome. He's really dedicated. His father is Jefferson Davis, who is a police officer in the game who helps Spider-Man out when he's trying to figure out why Fisk has an abandoned warehouse, what's going on inside of it, and you find out the demons are stealing from an underground vault inside, some weapons. So yeah, they work together, and Jefferson actually ends up saving Spider-Man, which is pretty ballsy. It's awesome. And he ends up almost dying, but he ends up getting this amazing hero reward for saving, because it wasn't just Spider-Man, I think saved the whole town, that whole part of the city.
Yeah, because they found that armory.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think they had bombs or something that they were gonna set off.
Yeah, and he
he rams his police car into the truck to stop the arms, the bombs that they have inside.
Exactly.
Which is what makes him get this amazing hero reward. That part of the game is real freaking intense. So we go from Miles into this because this is a heavily Miles part. So they're giving him, Mayor Osborne is giving Jefferson Davis an award in front of the mayor's office.
It's like a bunch of people.
It's reporters, it's everyone in the neighborhood. It's a huge deal, and everybody's out there celebrating him and how he saved, helped save New York, and it's really cool. And then, before you know it, it becomes terrible. Martin Lee's men invade, and there's a huge explosion.
There's like a suicide bomber, actually, that gets revealed.
Yep, and Martin touches him and makes him negative, and he blows up. There's a couple different bombings. One of them hits Peter, so Peter's literally down for the count at this point, and one hits Jefferson, too. So, you play as Miles because Peter's out. He's, out cold, and Mary Jane's like, oh, no! Peter! So yeah, you play as Miles, and you're like, I gotta find out if my dad's okay. So he's literally jumping over things, trying to figure out what's going on. And I believe at this point, it's Martin Lee's men, because as you're climbing under and over and around things, you see them killing just civilians. Just get out of the way, and then slice and dice, and it's creepy, man. It's a really cool scene because it's just all this chaos, in an action.
And you're just a kid.
And you're just a kid.
You feel really helpless because obviously you're not Spider-Man.
Yeah. And I mean, the stealth thing we did with Mary Jane is exactly what we do with Miles. We just kind of climb around until we finally get to that area that the bomb exploded. And Jefferson Davis is dead. His dad is dead. So shortly after that, I think Sable is called in. And kind of rounds...
Cleans it up.
Clowns.
Clowns it up.
Clowns it up. And,
she's an attractive older lady.
Yeah, Silver Sable is pretty hot, actually.
I think that's, how she is portrayed normally, but she's got this, really cool, trench coat kind of deal going on.
Yeah,
isn't she Russian?
I think so, yeah. She's completely in silver. She's really cool looking. She's very, very no nonsense. No sense of humor whatsoever.
Nope.
Refuses to work with Spider-Man. Which is one of the reasons that you have to take out Sable bases, because they're terrible. And her people are, completely, they have technology up the wazoo, they have armor up the wazoo, I mean, they got grenades, they have freaking, what do you call them? Jetpacks. It's insane.
Yeah.
They're, my least favorite bad guys to deal with, just because how ridiculously, OP they are.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, okay, so Jefferson dies, you have to lay him to rest, so everybody's at the funeral. And then obviously Miles is super sad, and his mother Rio is there trying to comfort him, and then Peter just suggests to Aunt May that maybe Miles would like to help out around Feast. So, he ends up working at Feast and helping Aunt May out, and honestly, he spends way more time with Aunt May than Spider-Man does. And Peter does, I should say.
That's true. But I mean, she technically kind of raised him, so they're we cool.
Yeah, exactly. So after the Miles stuff, which basically, like I said, it's a lot like Mary Jane, you're just kind of stealthily moving through things.
Don't you go back to Dr. Octavius's lab?
Yeah. And you find out that he's not doing so good. He's got, a muscle degeneration disease.
I can't remember if it's muscles or nerves.
He said muscles.
Yeah, muscles.
So, at this point, he's not funded at all. He tells Peter that he can come work for him. He's not getting paid. It's literally just him trying to make things work. And at this point, you realize that things are going downhill. He's creating the arms that he was originally creating for,
They're not just arms anymore, they're you get an example of a preview of his tentacle.
Mm-hmm. His tentacles, yep.
It looks like a normal arm, and he's like, Peter, look, I've done it. And then it just kind of he throws an apple at it, and then it lashes out. Mm-hmm. And it's very sinister.
Well, and Peter's like, how is this helping anyone? We want to make it look more realistic, and he's kind of just oh, but it's my baby, you have to help me make it.
He's not just like that, he's also why give people what they lost when we could also do that, but also make it better, quotation marks.
Yeah, exactly. He's like, why don't we do that when we can make it better? But it's like, at this point, you'd be just giving regular civilians weapons.
Yep. And, like, the neural, like, interface that he has to wear, he, like, tries to remove it, and he can't because his arms are, like, spaghetti now that he can't, like, use them.
Yes.
So then you're just kind of, like... And he's also, like, you feel like he's in pain every time that he removes the neural chip. Mm-hmm. So it's, like, foreshadowing.
Well, and I think it said something, yes, as a part when Peter's trying to help him figure this out, because, of course, Peter helps this become a reality.
Unfortunately.
He's like, man, the more that he uses this, the more he's going to, like, lose his ability, is basically his grasp on reality, which is what all bad villains end up having, a bad grasp on reality.
So then Dr. Octopus is just like, you're right, Peter. I've learned from my ways. It's fine.
As soon as Peter leaves, he totally, like, goes back and is like, never mind. He sees Osborn give, like, a press conference about how, like, he's gonna do the right thing, and you're just like, yeah, right, and Otto does not believe it at all. So, my favorite part of the game, like, my absolute favorite part of the game, is where they're at the Grand Central Terminal. So, that's where apparently Martin Lee's going to unleash his, like, the Devil's Breath. That's where they're going to unleash it. So they end up getting some from, Osborn. They end up putting it in, like, this bomb, and it's going to release into the world, all of, like, the Devil's Breath, and people are gonna get sick, and yada yada yada. This part is really cool. So basically Mary Jane gets held hostage, like usual, and Spider-Man has to come in and help her out. So they're communicating while she's literally being held hostage. So at this point, like, she gets taken back because she's like, I know how to make, Mayor Osborn listen, I work for him, lying again, like normal Mary Jane. So they're like, oh, put her aside, we gotta make sure that the mayor comes down for this, because this whole time, they literally just want to take out Osborn. He is their focal point. So, Mary Jane gets pulled aside, and thankfully gives her enough time to be like, I'm free, Spider-Man, come help me out. And this is a really cool part. So you play as Mary Jane, and you're sneaking around like normally what you do for that gameplay with Mary Jane. But every time you get close to a bad guy, you're like, take him out, Spider-Man! And then he just comes down, and they're working together. It's super cool, because like you just see him flipping around in the background, and he crawling on walls and taking out bad guys. It's really cool, like, the idea of the gameplay is just really awesome. It's not something that I expected to see in the game, but it was so needed and so wanted, and I loved it. And then, at some point, Mary Jane gets the bomb, Spider-Man helps her defuse it, and Martin Lee and Spider-Man end up having this huge showdown in the subway, and obviously Spider-Man wins. The fight's really cool, because he just sends huge blasts of negative energy at you, and I think at some point you get to actually be in the negative world, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, he, like, touches Spider-Man and brings him into the world of negativity. Don't we all go there sometimes? Mm-hmm. So what is his, like, boss, like, what does he look like?
Just like a giant, like, Japanese or Asian demon of some sort.
Yeah, he's like a huge kabuki demon.
And, like, everywhere that he, like, steps and punches, there's a bunch of little, like, dark creature things that pop up, and it's creepy.
It's so creepy. And, like, the world is literally, like, the actual world, just, like, black and white and, like, negative. It's really cool. This is, like, insanely inspired, and I love it. Whoever decided that was going to be a villain was, like, totally like, you know what? Amy's gonna like this. Mm-hmm. They knew exactly what I was gonna like. But I'm just kidding. So after that battle, he also gets sent to the raft. Martin Lee gets sent to the raft, too, with all these villains. Otto helps all of them escape, all of these villains that are in there. Otto gets all of the villains out, which include Electro, Martin Lee again, or Mr. Negative, whatever you want to call him, Vulture, and Scorpion, right?
And Rhino.
Oh, and Rhino. So there's, like, 6 villains now that you have to face, and New York City becomes, like, this creepy, desolate, like, place because there are all these factions now from Scorpion's men, and Rhino's men, Electro's men, and all these other, like, characters. It's just, like, it's a lot.
And then Dr. Octopus gets revealed as the leader of all of them.
And then you see him on the streets, and you're like, oh no, Otto. It's really sad, because Peter really looked up to him. And then, once you let out the bad guys, everything in New York starts kind of going to crap. But it gets even worse when Otto is like, hey, you know that Devil's Breath stuff? I have it now. I'm gonna open it. And he just, everybody gets incredibly sick. Basically, you find out what Otto's got what Otto has got on all of these villains. Because obviously, a bunch of villains aren't going to work with another villain unless there's some kind of collateral at stake. And, Martin Lee, he's going to cure him because his negativity thing is actually like a curse. And there's a couple of them that are cursed. Like, for example, the Rhino wants to get out of his suit. Scorpion.
He offered them, like, favors.
Yeah,
basically.
Exactly. Scorpion just wanted money.
Mm-hmm.
Or his debts paid, something like that. Electro wanted to be pure energy, whatever the hell that means.
Electro's probably the Rhino's my favorite minor villain.
And Vulture wants to be able to walk again. It sounds like his contraption actually makes it so, like, if he takes it off, he can't actually, like, be a person. He has to have it on, otherwise, like, he can't function as a human being. His, like, basically his suit took a toll on him, which is exactly what Otto's suit would do if he left it on for a long time. You actually discover this, and it's all just a huge ploy for Otto to, completely wreck the town. So he releases the Devil's Breath, people get really sick, Sable starts having, like, containments, and, like, it gets really bad. Like, everybody's shooting at you at this point. There's so many different sects of bad guys. I was saying there's inmates coming after you because they escaped from the raft. It's insane. At this point, I started kind of, like, disliking the game because it was just so overwhelming, and I could not wait to be done. But the nice thing is, you put some of the villains away. Like, I think it's, like, Electro and Scorpion? No, Scorpion, Rhino, and then Vulture and Electro, I think, together. There's a point where Spider-Man, I think he responds to some call. Like, Yuri's like, Scorpion's doing a thing, and it's all kind of a, like...
It's like one after another.
Yeah, it's like a ploy. And he gets him with his poison.
And, like, you go into basically this nightmare world where there's, like, poison everywhere. Like, a giant poison ocean, and you're just, like, freaking out. And is that where you see Dr. Octopus? Like, you see him in the nightmare.
Yes, it was the poison.
And you see him in the nightmare while you're fighting Scorpion, and he's just like, you did this to me, Peter. You could have helped me, but instead you made me what I am.
Yeah,
and it's like,
it's basically Peter's way of guilting himself and making him feel like it's his fault when it's not his fault.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a really cool trip, and at the end of it, you get to see something kind of sexy.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
You get to see Peter in his underwear. With just his mask on, which is actually...
like a nightmare he would have.
Well, it's also the last suit that you can unlock, which is kind of funny. But yeah, it's got a really funny, like, perk attached to it, because every suit's kind of got its own perk. And it's basically, like, all, like, everyone you defeat goes down in one hit.
But so do you.
Which is a really funny way to do it. And I actually have not unlocked that suit yet, but I really want to. So, you put away...
all the minor villains.
Electro, the Rhino. The Rhino is actually kind of fun. There's a part where Miles is running away from the Rhino.
He's trying to get anti-serum because also Aunt May got
really
poisoned by the Devil's Breath, and they need antibiotics.
They need antibiotics because Feast has basically become, like, a huge, like hospital.
Sick bay.
Yeah, huge sick bay. And, Miles is still helping out around Feast and trying to do what he can to help people. And, he's trying to get some of the anti-serum at one of the bases that the Rhino just happens to be at. They hear him cluttering around. He grabs some of the antibiotics, but they're after him. And yeah, it's a very strange part because it was kind of funny. There's this part where the rhino he's looking for you, but obviously you're sneaking around as Miles, and he started kind of just wandering into boxes. It was kind of funny. He was just like walk.
Because like
walk,
if you
walk.
don't move for a certain amount of time, he'll stop moving.
Yes,
but he was just like, yeah, it was funny.
Yeah, the whole thing. It's a little intimidating because obviously you don't want the rhino to run you over, but at the same time, like some of the gameplay can be a little like just weird at times, with like glitchy, like with any game. Basically, there's gonna be its weird glitchy flaws. Like I remember at one point I was beating up some thugs and I literally got jammed between 5 bad guys and a light post and I could not get out of it. It was so bad. I'm like, I'm gonna get murdered over here.
And then there was that one guy, like you were in by like a shipyard and you have to kill all of the little like snipers and villains to get out of an area. Mm-hmm. But he fell, like, in between this tiny crack between 2 big crates and a fence.
I was taking out a Sable base, and this guy just, like, glitches into a bunch of boxes, and he can't get out, and he was the last person I had to kill. So I had to do it all over again. It was... there's some disappointing things, like some gameplay in here that can be a little disappointing. And, like, I get it, glitches happen every now and again, but that was really upsetting, because the Sable stuff is so incredibly hard. I just, I was so sad. But anyway, back to the story. So
we put away Rhino.
Yep.
And all the other guys.
And all the other villains. Except for Martin Lee and Doc Ock. Actually, before we talk about Martin Lee, since we put all these other 4 away. The other 4 away. Which the battles are pretty fun. The Vulture and Electro are fun. It's funny watching how much they don't like each other. Like, all these bosses, these villains who are working together, they don't like each other, and they keep talking about how much they hate each other. It's kind of funny, because when Rhino and Scorpion are working together, they just keep running into each other, and like, hey, stop running into me! And he's like, it's your fault! My really bad... What is Rhino again? Big Russian man.
Yeah, let's go with that.
But yeah, when you put them away, it's just kind of funny because obviously none of these villains like each other, and as smart as Otto is, he can't make any of these villains smarter. Like, but I mean, it's fun while it lasts. So after that, Mary Jane decides to sneak into Norman's penthouse, the mayor's penthouse, because she wants to find out where they're keeping the rest of the Devil's Breaths to see, because supposedly Osborn is working on a serum so that he can cure it, because there's no cure right now. You can treat it, but there's no actual cure to make sure that it goes away. So she goes into the penthouse, sneaks around, takes out some Sable agents with a taser, which is pretty cool. It's funny. It's nice that she can actually do something now instead of just, being a little stealthy poot. So she finds recorders, which is funny. Throughout the entire game, you have recorders, and everybody who uses recorders uses the same brand of recorders. Like, Doc Ock uses the same brand of recorders as Norman, which I guess they work together. That makes sense. But I think Martin Lee does too, and it's just weird. Like, you didn't expect everybody to use so many dang recorders. They leave, like, little messages around, which is just interesting. So you find Norman's little extra room where he has all of his data on where all of his bases are and where the serum's being taken, and you find out this Dr. Michaels has it and where it was being made, which is also where they're making the serum. So she finds that out, and she's looking around a cutscene, and she knocks into some spiders, because apparently, I said this before, but Norman works on genetics, so he's like trying to genetically engineer Spider-Man's powers, so he has spiders everywhere that are genetically engineered, and she
does like a different thing. It's really stupid.
It's interesting. So she knocks into one of the containers and unleashes a bunch of spiders, and they stick to her. And then Sable's like, "Who is here?" Just kidding. So she, you know, then you have to sneak out of the penthouse, and Spider-Man grabs you, which is a cute little moment. Oh yeah, there's also a Stan Lee cameo. Like, you go on a date with Mary Jane at one point, and he's the cook. He's like, "Hey, kids!" It's very Stan Lee. But anyway,
it wouldn't be a good Marvel game
if Stan Lee wasn't cameoing in it.
Exactly.
I don't even know if Stan Lee was in any of the other games. So, after you're done at the lab and you have spiders all over you, she thinks she gets them off, but later on you find out, no, in fact, one of the spiders ends up going on to Miles. It leaves her and, like, decides to go hang out on Miles, and yeah, we'll talk about the rest of that later. So there's this Halloween party going on downtown. You fit right in because you're in a Spider-Man suit, because almost everybody is either in a Spider-Man suit, a skeleton suit, a cat suit. Yeah, it's just weird. It's very, like, obvious, you know, and it's all the same suits. I mean, I get it, you don't want to make a bunch of costumes for your characters, like, actually, background characters, but I
think the reason they probably did that is so that when they were in mobs later, they'd be more recognizable.
Yeah, that makes sense. So yeah, you go through this, you know, Halloween party that's going on downtown, and, Martin Lee, you know, you're trying to get to that Dr. Michaels before Martin Lee can, because I think this is the part where he actually steals the Devil's Breath from them. And it's just really cool. It looks really creepy and fun, and there's a really cool part where you actually, like, scale the building while looking in on Martin Lee and this doctor. And it's a really cool, like, little side mission, because it's, you know, who doesn't like Halloween? And it's actually almost Halloween. So it's just kind of a fun little extra piece that they throw in there. And then, of course, he turns everybody negative and they start coming after you. And this is actually where that starts, when he starts actually turning people negative. It's pretty much at that Halloween party. And then, like I was saying before, Miles gets the spider and he gets bit. Uh-oh, wonder what's gonna happen.
It's weird, though, because then they kind of drop it. They just drop it until the end of the game.
Right.
They're just like, oh yeah, that happened.
So then we get on to the next part, which is the big Martin Lee battle, which you have to do the huge demon kabuki fight once more, which is more intense than the first time around, but just as satisfying and just as cool. So then, you know, you put Martin Lee away, and then your final battle with Doc Ock. So the battle with Doc Ock is
I was very excited about it.
It's super amazing. It's actually one of the best boss fights I've ever done. It's just satisfying. So, like, Doc Ock is coming after you, you have to take out his tentacles, which is sadly the remedy for a lot of what you do. And I get it, it's Spider-Man, this does make sense, but they want you to web them up and then beat them up and then web them up and then beat them up, which is kind of what you do for Fisk in the beginning, and there's like a kind of a train of events that you do almost the exact same thing.
Yeah, but they switch it up a little bit.
They do. I'm not saying they're not, yeah.
Well, yeah, but like, eventually he takes out your web shooters.
Oh, right, yeah. I mean, man, your suit is falling apart by the time that you are done with Doc Ock. So yeah, I mean, it gets to the point where, you know, you beat him up to the point where you fall to the side of the building. Both of you fall on the side of the building, and you're still fighting.
All during this, there's all this, like, dramatic dialogue. It's like, Obi-Wan and Anakin.
Yeah, I thought we meant more than this together.
You're my friend, I wanted to save the world with you.
And you also find out at this moment that, Doc Ock knows Peter Parker is Spider-Man.
He knew all along, which makes it even worse.
Yeah. And, like, Spider-Man's, like, he's just like,
he was toying with me.
Well, not just that, but, like, he was like, I thought we were more than this. I thought we were really good friends. We were really good partners. I thought he just basically thought he was more than just an assistant. But the way that he's treating him is just like he doesn't care anymore. And he's really conflicted. He doesn't want to have to take down his friend, but he knows that he's going to have to. Yeah, and like he even asked Mary Jane at one point, he's like, when do you give up on a friend? And she's like, well, you know, the nice part of me wants to say you never give up on a friend, but, you know, when it
gave up on you, like,
yeah,
when, like, somebody doesn't want your help anymore, or, like, doesn't need you anymore. You know, you gotta move on from that.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
And he, you know, he struggles internally with that. Mm-hmm. But yeah, okay, so after you guys do your huge, and this is on top of the Oscorp building, you are, you are actually, like, thrown to the side of the building.
It's very cinematic.
Yeah, you don't have any web shooters. They don't really give you much context on the actual fight, but what you have to do is keep dodging his tentacles and beating him up, and then dodging and beating him up, until finally he drops off the building, and you are able to take... He's vulnerable.
He's got the anti-serum.
Yeah, he's got the anti-serum. He's vulnerable for a moment, so you actually take that moment to disconnect his, like, gear from his head.
Which is just throw it away.
And throw it away. And he can't move. He's, like, completely paralyzed, but you are able to get the serum.
Thankfully, it doesn't break when he hits the ground.
Mm-hmm. And I just want to say, before we talk about the very last part of this game, it's really damn depressing at this point. It's just very sad.
Because I think before that point, like, when you're racing to go get to Dr. Octopus, doesn't Yuri call you? And then she's like, I'm done with this. I'm gonna go say goodbye to my mom.
Yeah, like, it sounds like her family is all sick, and she wants to be there for them, just in case. It's really sad. But, like, not only that, like, Mary Jane's like, you know, you better come see Aunt May. She's only got, like, an hour left tops. And you're just like, oh my god, this is so depressing. Mm-hmm. And, yeah, it basically is just, like, death around you. It's so sad. And you're just trying to keep things together because you're Spider-Man. It's a really depressing part of the game. But the thing that I really like is before the very ending, before you even beat Doc Ock, it actually tells you, you know, this is the very last mission. If you want to clean up all of your objectives, the collectibles, side missions, you have to do it now. You know, I mean, you don't have to. You can always wait till after the game. But you know what I mean. It's like, hey, if you want to get it all before the actual last, like, piece of this game, you might as well do it now. Because I'm one of those people that I kind of like to try, but I don't usually end up getting it all before the actual end of the game. So anyway, you get the serum, you bring it to Feast, and you basically the doctor who made it is like, well, you have only like, if you use it as it is, you have one dose. If you let him make it into an actual,
like, cultures.
Yeah, if you let him replicate it, he will make enough for everyone. So
but
it
takes time.
But it takes time. And it's going to take way more time
than Aunt May has, which is less than an hour at this point. So it's like,
it's awesome because at one point Spider-Man's like, I'm gonna do it, and then he's like, I can't do it.
It's like, let Aunt May live and let everybody else in New York, like, die, basically. So it's,
Aunt May dies.
We expected it would have been way worse if they gave you an ultimatum.
Oh yeah, they don't let you choose this. This is just how the story plays out. It's kind of like a reverse Last of Us, which is also a spoiler if you haven't played The Last of Us. But it literally is a reverse Last of Us. And I mean, I appreciate it because The Last of Us made me feel like I was tortured. Like I was just like, why? But yeah, so Aunt May dies. Everybody's there for the funeral.
2 funerals in this game.
Yeah, it's so sad. So yeah, that part was incredibly sad. Obviously, Peter was completely torn up about it.
Afterwards, they kind of like try and throw you back into like 3 weeks later or something like that.
Yeah,
maybe like 3 months later. I can't remember how much time passed, but then. Does it open where you're, like, moving? No, it doesn't. No, it
No,
doesn't.
you actually are sitting at a restaurant with Mary Jane. It's the same one as that Stan Lee works at, of course.
Mm-hmm.
And, you're talking, and you're like, oh, we want to make things work out. And, like, the very last scene of this game the very last before credits is them kissing.
Yeah, they throughout the whole game, they go back and forth with, like, the will they, won't they get back together? They get back together, and then they break up, and it's like... So, like, it's supposed to be rewarding to, like, see them kiss and, like, be like, we're partners! And it is, but they kind of, like, were like, this was really sad. Let's throw you a little happy, like, tidbit.
Yeah.
So that you feel good.
Well, not just that, there are a couple of times where I'm like at the terminal, for example, they were working amazingly well together. But immediately after that, she's like, I don't think I'm ready yet. And you're just like, what the freak? You guys were doing so well! Like, he literally treated you like a partner, but still!
It's very, yeah.
You're like...
it's like a movie. You're like...
Like I said, the drama gets to be a little too much sometimes.
Yeah.
And I'm just kind of like, unnecessary, I don't want you anymore. No,
it's like, cut the bull crap, I want you to They don't even... I was hoping they'd spider kiss, but, like, they just regular kiss.
It was, yeah. It was just Peter and Mary Jane. There was no Spider-Man involved in the kiss. But yeah, they kiss and then immediately cut to credits, which is a little... Like, there were questions.
Abrupt.
There was questions.
Yeah, like, you literally left Yuri... Like, in that situation.
Yuri's just like, what happened to Yuri?
You didn't find out if her mom ever made it, or, like, her family ever made it, and, like...
They never talk about it again.
So it's like, bye!
Yeah, that's the end of the game, but then, shortly after, they do some credits, and then you find out that, oh my god, Miles has powers!
Like,
just like Spider-Man!
So Spider-Man got evicted from his apartment, right? Like, really, like, towards
early
the beginning,
yeah.
It opens to Miles helping him move in, and he's like, hey, Pete, I gotta tell you about something. Everything was going, like, all the crap was going down before, so, like, I didn't feel like it was right time, but then he zips onto the ceiling, and then Peter does it too, and they're just like, spider friends.
So cute.
Do whatever spider friends do.
It's so cute.
So, in a way, but that's also after, like, probably a good half hour of credits.
It's not that. It's
not
a
that
couple
long.
minutes, and then after that, after the actual credits, you get another cutscene.
Oh my god, yeah, let's not forget about that. Okay, so, like, remember when Mary Jane broke into, snuck into Norman's penthouse? She, at one point, was in that, like, room where you find the file for, like, the, and there's, like, a whole bunch of science-y stuff everywhere, and, like, the spiders are there.
Yeah, that's basically the same place where she knocked into the spiders.
Yeah, she walked by this one tank, and you're just like, whatever. It's like you don't even realize it's a tank, because it's covered in, like, metal. But then Norman, in this cutscene, he walks downstairs, and he, like, beep-boops on a number pad, and then the tank opens up, and you find out that Harry wasn't in Europe this whole time. He was in this creepy, like, stasis tank, like, hooked up to a whole bunch of stuff, and it's, like, green, and, like...
He's got, like, vines on him. It's
got, like,
really weird.
It actually were webs, remember? Like,
oh, yeah.
Because he was apparently... So, basically, Norman is, like, trying to synthesize Harry into, like, this creepy, like, anti-Spider-Man, I guess?
Well, no. Remember, he has the same disease his mother has.
Oh, yeah, and he was,
and
like,
he's trying to cure him. That's why he's going to Europe.
Exactly,
Air
but
quotes.
It's, like, it's so inhumane and, like...
It looks creepy, but that's probably why when he was telling Spider-Man in the notes that he left him, he sounded so hesitant about Europe.
Exactly.
Because he was like, Harry's not telling me something multiple times.
Yeah.
Because apparently Harry, Mary Jane, and Peter all grew up together as friends, and they went to school together, and they were all really close, and then Harry just leaves, and they're just like, what is going on with Harry?
I'm really hoping that the next game involves the Green Goblin. Like, if they make a next game, because the fact that the tank that he was in was green, I think was kind of foreshadowing.
I think so too, like the Green Goblin.
Yeah.
Does Harry ever become a bad guy?
Oh yeah, after Norman dies, because Norman was the original Green Goblin, and then Harry kind of
takes over
his
for him.
cloak. Yeah.
That's right. I totally
it's
forgot
very,
about that.
it's
Very like, I will avenge you,
I
father!
remember watching the movie and like wishing that I had his hoverboard though, because he has like a hoverboard that he flies around on. Yeah.
Well, so yeah, I mean, the game is good. I really liked it. Yeah, even there's a lot of credits.
And yeah, we were like waiting because we knew there was going to be a couple of cutscenes. But then you find out later you can actually like hold down whatever.
You can hold down a joystick and go much, much faster.
Yeah, so
I
like,
felt so dumb.
Just in case you guys like encounter that problem, you can fast forward the credits.
You can also play after the fact, which is kind of funny because Yuri finally comes back on there, back on the thing. She doesn't say anything about her family. She's just like, we still got cleanup to do, Spider Cop. And she actually is cool with Spider Cop at this point. Which is...
So you're just like, yep.
Things are back to normal. And all of the, like, chaos on the streets is back to its normal, like, yeah. It's
friendly
back to its
neighborhood.
Yeah, it's back to its not, you know, it's not incredibly friendly, but like, you know, enough that you don't have to worry about every faction of bad guy trying to come after you, which is nice. Mm-hmm. So yeah, you can go back and clean things up. You get a suit at the very end of the game too. It's the suit that you make to fight Doc Ock, which it's not anything super exciting, but it's cool. I mean, it's an unlockable, which is nice. Mm-hmm. But yeah, so it is nice that after the fact you can still play the game, because most of them boot you back to before you beat the game, but this one actually lets you play after you beat the game.
Well, yeah, so you can get all the trophies.
I know of so many games that do that, because they're just like, you can't do anything after that, and that's why I thought, when they warned you about it, I was like, hey, I'm under the impression I can't go back, or do anything after this point. So what was your favorite, like, mission?
The bird poop one.
Oh yeah, yeah. There is one part where you have to like go into pigeon nests and there's like bird poop and yeah.
It was one of the science missions, I think. Another thing I wanted to mention is the comic book suit comes with quips as a perk, so it's like amazing.
The quips are really fun.
One of them, like, during that mission, he was like, I bet the Avengers don't have bird poop missions.
Yeah.
And he was just such a, like, cute, adorable child.
We should talk about Spider-Man. He's not like Tom Holland. He's not much older, but he's a little older. Obviously, since he has his own place and he's not going to school. But he also, he looks a little bit more like Andrew Garfield. If we had to, like, you know, relate him to a movie version. He's just a little bit more pretty boy looking, but he kind of has Tom Holland's hair, right?
Kind of. Yeah, like, he looks like a weird, like, cross between the two.
Yeah. I mean, you know, he totally has the right voice for it. I mean, by the end of the game, I was like, this is another Spider-Man. Like, I actually felt like it was Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Which is good. That's what you want to feel. You don't want to feel like you're just managing this fake Spider-Man dude around. And, yeah. But yeah, there's so many elements to this game. It was a ton of fun.
It was fun to watch, because, like, I didn't actually play the game, but, yeah, like, it was entertaining, even though I wasn't actually, like, doing any combat. So, yeah, that speaks for it.
Well, yeah, and there's a couple different modes that you can choose from. You can do easy, normal, and hard. Usually I go for easy. I like to, like, focus on the story rather than the gameplay. But for the review, I did normal mode. Just because it's a more balanced gameplay. And the normal mode, yes, Sable is a pain in the butt, but I think even if I was on easy, I feel like Sable still would have been a pain in the butt. So I'm not upset about what mode I chose, and I feel like most people can definitely do normal mode. There are those people who are not very good at, like, gameplay, combo, or doing combos and beating people up. Yeah, you definitely should do easy mode if you're not looking forward to beating up buttloads of people. There are so many people you have to beat up in this game. Which, I mean, you just come to expect that in a hero game. But yeah, it's insane how many people you have to beat up. The storyline is amazing. That last part of the game is so intense. It's so dramatic. It's so intense. It literally felt like I was playing a movie, a Spider-Man movie, which is insane. I've never played a Spider-Man game like that. It was awesome. The game is totally worth playing, and I mean, we should totally do reviews now. Well, what would you give it?
10 out of 10.
10 out of 10?
10 out of 10, like, spider webs.
I would give it 10 out of 10 Aunt May's. Because she ain't coming back in the sequel.
No.
I know, that's sad to say. What do you want to see in the sequel?
I want to see some sick Green Goblin on Peter Parker action.
I want to see Miles and Peter working together.
Like, it'd be interesting if it was 2-player.
Yeah, and like one person played as Miles and the other person played as Peter. Or Spider-Man, sorry. But yeah,
I want more quips.
I want to know...
more thwips.
Thwips.
Like webs.
Me too. There's just, and if there is a sequel, I want Donald Glover to play, like, actually do Miles' voice acting. Please.
You're like, I just want Donald Glover.
I just want, you know what? Scratch that. We're gonna call the next Spider-Man game Donald Glover.
Community Spider-Man edition.
But no, I mean, it was an amazing game. If you get the chance, you find it at a reasonable price, or if you just want to go out and pay the $60 for it, I don't blame you either way. It is an astounding game. I feel like any superhero fan should play it. I say that because I am not a huge Marvel person. I'm actually more into DC, and I absolutely freaking love this game. Like, I feel like it's actually better than most of the Batman Arkham games, which is hard because I love Batman! I love Batman.
And, like, I don't have a lot of experience with, like, superhero games because I just recently got into video games, but I'm a giant Marvel fan. And, like, Spider-Man has always been one of my favorite superheroes. And, like, even just from a nerd standpoint, it was, like, delightful.
It was...
Yeah, you get a whole bunch of, like, information, too, that you didn't know before. I mean, it's obviously not canon, but, like, you know, still, it's like it's Spider-Man.
Yeah. And then you also gotta remember the Insomniac, who are the creators of this game, they also did Spyro and the Ratchet and Clank games. So, like, obviously it's not anything like those two games, but it lives up to the hype that it's just as good. And I feel like this is one of those games that years and years and years from now, we're gonna be like, oh man, that was a good Spider-Man game. We have to go back to that, just like we go back to our Spyro the Dragon games and our Ratchet and Clank games, which is awesome. Yeah, it's a classic. It is literally a classic. So yeah, we definitely recommend you playing this game.
Also, the DLC is coming out in, like...
Yes, The City Never Sleeps, right?
Yes, it's coming out in like 5 days from now. Today's the 19th, it's coming out on the 23rd.
Yes.
So yeah, it probably should be out by the time this gets uploaded.
Yeah, and it's, apparently it's 3 parts. The first part's called The Heist. It's going to be 3 parts.
That's the part we know about so far, yeah.
Because obviously the other 2 have not been released yet. But they're about Black Cat. And she's
one of Spider-Man's exes, so it's like gonna be relationship drama.
Oh wow, I had no idea that they were a thing before. I know her name is Felicia, right?
Felicia, yeah. Felicia.
Felicia.
But yeah, she's like very creative, and like all of her interactions are really cool because she leaves like these big graffiti spreads.
She's literally what Catwoman is to Batman. She steals, and that's pretty much what she does. She steals and she likes to set up, like, Spidey traps. But you know what? That's enough Spider-Man for today. I think that we should talk a little bit more about ourselves. Since you don't really know very much about Monty and I. We are owners of Mojos, which is what the whole podcast is kind of about. Video games and our love of video games. I'm a little bit more experienced and she's a little less experienced, which is why it's a good combination, because you can hear about it from someone who's not a huge gamer and someone who's been gaming for almost their entire life. So, this is an awesome game. I'm gonna keep saying that. Even when I die. I'm gonna be like, on my tombstone.
This was an awesome game!
Spider-Man for PS4 was amazing. No, I'm just kidding. So, a little bit about ourselves. So, my full name is Amethyst. I like to be called Amy. I've been with Mojos for 10 years now. Oh my goodness, I can't believe it's been that long. And like we were saying before, we're a little shop based out of Wisconsin. And then Monty is my partner.
I'm secretly a dinosaur, by the way.
Yeah.
Don't tell anyone.
Well, it comes from her, gamer tag, Monty Rex, which is awesome. And I just like cats. We're going to ask the listeners question. Who is your favorite superhero? A
Marvel superhero.
Who's your favorite Marvel superhero? And who's your favorite villain? And
either one, both.
Yeah, and why? Because we want to know. We gotta know. Just because everybody's got a different one, and some of them I haven't even heard of yet. So I'd like to hear, everybody's opinions, the facts. Oh god, we didn't even talk about J. Jonah Jameson.
Yeah.
Just the facts.
He's just as much of a, butthole as he is in, all of the other
movies
and stuff. He's just curmudgeonly. And,
I can't tell if it's the same actor or not, but it sounds real dang close. If it isn't.
Yeah.
But yeah, anyway, so we want just the facts about that question, and you can actually answer it at mojogamingpodcast@gmail.com. Email us at mojogamingpodcast.
That's just Mojo, M-O-J-O.
Yep, mojogamingpodcast@gmail.com. Or feel free to answer at either of our Twitters. Mine is MojoAmi, and Monty's is...
Monty Rex. That's with 2 X's.
Yes. And feel free to... it doesn't have to be about the question. You can just tell us how we did, if you liked it, if you didn't like it, what we could improve on, things that we did well. Anything. Just give us some feedback. We really appreciate it.
Ask us questions.
Yes.
Yeah, we want to know more about you guys. Tell us something about yourselves.
And, if you answer a question, like the one that we did, we'll talk about it on our next episode. Well, thank you guys for listening. This has been Spider-Man once again, and thank you, and good night.
And a good night. A goodbye. A very spidery rest of your day to you.